How's it going, everyone? Alex with Jeeps Limited. So today I'm installing an air oil separator, or as some might call it, an oil catch can on my 2016 Jeep Wrangler with the 3.6 liter pentastar engine. So what this does is it goes in line from your PCV valve, which is a valve on your engine, to the air intake. That's where it's routed on these engines. It's where it's routed on most engines. And the reason why we're going to be installing this is because that hose gathers a lot of oil and condensation from inside the engine and recirculates it into your air intake and then pushes it through your motor. It gums up your air intake, it gums up your intake valves, and then you just have moisture and oil and crud going into the cylinders as they fire, which is just not good for the engine and is going to rob you of some performance. So this is a Mishimoto kit. It's designed specifically for the Jeep Wranglers with the 3.6 liter engines. It comes with a bracket, comes with a can, comes with the hose you need to make it work in this particular vehicle. Like I said, the mounting bracket, the hardware, it's all included. All we need is a wrench or ratchet with a 7mm, an 8mm, and a 10mm socket, and a couple of Allen keys. And it should take about 30 minutes to get this installed. So as I'm taking this apart, I'll show you guys all of this crud and this fluid that's coming out of the existing hose and into the air intake to kind of give you a better idea of why I'm going to be installing this. This might vary depending on your vehicle. Some engines create more condensation than others. I'm not exactly sure what the cause for that is. It's got a lot to do with just the overall health of the motor, which is odd because this motor has about 4,000 miles on it, so it should not be producing this much moisture probably, but it is. Oh well. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on this and show you guys kind of what it takes to get one of these installed. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is locate the hose that comes from the PCV valve to the air intake, which is this one right here. And we're just going to pull that out. I already kind of loosened it, and usually should be a bit tighter than that. I'm just going to pull that out, and then I'm not sure if you guys can see, but there's a whole bunch of moisture that's just on that already, just from it running and drawing moisture in there. So we have that disconnected here at the intake. We have to follow it back to the PCV valve, and to get it out we have to pull this other line which connects from the other side of the engine higher up on the air intake, which also has a bunch of crud and shit in it, but oh well, that's normal. That's supposed to come out like that. We'll just have to make sure we get it back into the engine in the back. It also has, it actually has more. You can see, let's see, all that oil and moisture on there. This one doesn't get connected to the oil catch can, which it probably should. I don't know why it doesn't. It, in my case, actually looks like it has more moisture coming out of it, but oh well. So the PCV valve is back here behind the passenger side valve cover. It's bolted in there, and then this hose just pushes onto it. There you go. Snake that out of there. So that's out of there. Yeah, you can see here there we at, moisture and just oil and gunk in there, and that's all just getting sucked into the engine. This actually didn't come with instructions, mind you, which is a little goofy, but oh well. I do know that the bracket will sit somewhere kind of in this orientation here. It will be underneath my switch panel here, hopefully. I think it'll fit. And then the can will hang below that. So for my application, I do need to remove the switch bank here temporarily just to be able to get access to where this mounts. flip that up out of the way. So this bracket should be connecting to two bolts that hold in the ECU, and then it should be bolting into one bolt that helps hold the power steering pump in, and then the catch can will hang down in here. Alright, so we did take the oil catch can. We had to use the Teflon tape to put the hose connections on there. And the next thing we're going to do is get ready to actually install the bracket here. And that is going to require us to remove two of the bolts, or the two bolts holding into the ECU, and one of the bolts holding in the power steering pump. So the ECU looks like an 8mm. Now that we have the right ratchet, 8mm, and we'll go ahead and loosen that. I don't think we need to even take it out. I think we just need to loosen it. If you do end up taking it out all the way, just be careful, because this bolt on the top does retain a ground, so you want to make sure that you get that reinstalled. Now we're going to loosen the power steering pump, which looks like it's the 10. And I don't believe we need to take that all the way out either. Let's test fit our bracket here. Alright, it looks like it's going to fit. I think we will take out this top bolt just for ease of install, so we'll just be careful with the ground there. But before we do that, I'm going to install the catch can onto the bracket, and we're just going to use the bolts on the top of the catch can here. There's 3 of them, small ones. Line the bracket up with the holes there. Make sure we have it orientated the way we want it. We're just going to start them. I'm not going to tighten them down all the way until we're sure that's where we want it. And then I'm going to take this top bolt out. Like I said, just, again, keep an eye on that ground. Make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Slide the bracket in. Line our ground back up. And then we're going to go ahead and just tighten everything down here. Tighten the bolts on the bracket at least. It does look like I should have plenty of room for the switch panel to go back in above this, which is really convenient. I'm going to grab a wrench for the ABS pump bolt. Be a little bit easier to get in there, and that was the 8mm. Or 10mm, I mean. A lot of room here. Double check these are tight. Okay. We'll just orientate that as far this way as we can and just go ahead and tighten it down so we don't forget. That'll be all right. Okay, next we are gonna grab the new lines. Does come with new hose clamps. We're just going to figure out how to run the new lines before we put the hose clamps on there. Like I said, nothing was really labeled, which is a little bit, no instructions and nothing was labeled, which is a little bit of a pain because we're going to have to kind of try and guess as to how any of this gets installed here. I think I have an idea. There's an in and an outside of the catch can. So we're going to take this first hose. I believe this is going to be the out. We're going to connect it. Grab a hose clamp right now and slide it on there. We're going to connect it to the outside there. Be careful with these fittings because they look like they're plastic. It looks to me like that outside. What are you guys doing? Come on. Trying to make a video. Okay. Where were we? We're going to take this out hose and route it around the back of the engine. And it is going to go right here into the air intake, and we're going to throw a hose clamp on that as well. Plug that in. Looks like this oil filter setup interferes with this a little bit, makes it a little bit tight, but can't seem to overcome there. And then we're going to take this inside. It looks like this is going to follow a pretty similar path. I'm going to start on the PCV valve side this time. This gets a hose clamp, which will probably be a bit of a pain to get on. I'm going to slide this down onto the PCV valve. We're on there all the way. That's good. The hose clamp down there. Ready to go. We're going to route this a similar route and go right into the hose clamp and go right into the catch can. Now we're going to take our other hose here that came out. We're going to remember to reinstall it. Easier to get from the other side usually. That back in on this side here. Make sure it stayed in. Pop it back into place there. Or not. There we go. Isn't it either? There we go. I don't really like the way these two cross each other. I feel like they're sticking up higher than they need to. So what we're gonna do, pop this one out. Run it underneath that one. Not sure if that does any good. And put it back in. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tighten our hose clamps. Not really sure how they expect you to get to the hose clamp on the PCV valve, to be honest. The existing didn't have a hose clamp on it. And we're going to give it a try. Alright, so I've decided to just go ahead and omit the hose clamp on the PCV valve for two reasons. One, it's literally almost physically impossible to get to, and secondly, the stock setup didn't have one that just pressed on there, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's good enough for this. Just finish up the couple of hose clamps over here then. I'm not going to make any of these super tight because it's all just going into plastic. So I don't want to over crank anything and tighten it. It just really, as long as it's tight on there and creates a seal, it'll be good enough. It's just sealing air. Well, yeah, a little bit of fluid, but mostly air. Alright, so that is the catch can installed. I'm going to put my switch panel back in place. Looks like this does in fact fit with that catch can bracket in there, which is awesome. Okay, so that is the install for that. That is actually pretty simple. The one thing that'll probably be a pain is anytime you go to empty the can, there's a drain on the bottom of it, but I don't know what you would drain it into, or you'd have to just unscrew it. The can does screw off the head there, but probably can't do it without making a mess. You can spin that off and drop it out of there to empty it, which is something you have to do. You have to empty these. They will fill up with fluid. So they recommend checking it for the first time after about 500 miles. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going on a trip here this weekend where I should be driving probably about 500 miles, going on a little road trip to go off-roading. So I'm going to have this installed. I'll do a nice amount of highway driving, a nice amount of off-roading, and then I will pull this out when I get back from my trip and see how much fluid is in there, and I will let you guys know if it collected anything. So I guess stay tuned for just a second here and you guys will see how it performed. Alright, so it's been about a week and I've gone about 400 miles since installing the oil catch can here. I drove about 200 miles one way to Rouch Off-Road Park, did a day of wheeling there and then drove home. So it's got about 400-ish, a little bit more, maybe 425 miles on it since I installed the catch can. So I'm going to take it off and see what's in there. And one thing I wanted to actually point out, I decided this kit comes with one catch can that comes off of the PCV valve, which is on the passenger side valve cover. And that, when it runs out of the catch can, it goes into the air intake here. There's another vent that comes off the driver's side valve cover, it doesn't have a PCV valve on it. It just vents into the air intake box. And the one going into the air intake box actually produced a lot more moisture than the one coming off the PCV valve. So I actually got a second catch can. I just got like a generic no-name one off of Amazon, and I installed that one with just some fuel line stuff that I got, or it's technically heater hose, that I got from AutoZone. And that one is installed right here, and this kind of just zip tied basically to the bracket. So I'm going to take them both off, and we'll see if they caught any oil, and we'll see which one caught more oil. I'm going to start by taking off the Mishimoto one that comes off the PCV valve. And I think these are, the downfall of this is they're probably going to be a pain to get off, especially with fluid in them. I might end up just dumping it all over the place, but I'm going to try and avoid doing that. Let's see. That was weird. Alright, so there's definitely, see if you can see that, definitely some fluid in there. Not a whole lot. Definitely some. And that's actually mostly oil. Very oily. So there's definitely some fluid that came out of there. That's actually not probably as much as I was expecting to see after 500 miles. Yeah, that's mostly just oil. There's really doesn't appear to be a whole lot of condensation or moisture in there. Mostly just oil. So, but I mean that saved that much oil from going through the motor, which just gums up the valves. It'll gum up the air intake, gums up the can gum up the pistons. Just not really sure why there's that kind of stuff going through there in the first place. But so that's the Mishimoto one that comes off the PCV valve. Put that on. Now I'm gonna see if I can't get this other one out, which is the second one that I put on. Let's cut these zip ties, I guess. Same thing. Hopefully, maybe this will be something that only needs to be done like every oil change or so, just for simplicity. And see, this one actually has surprisingly less. I mean, almost nothing in it compared. We'll pour that one out. It's got really just a couple of drops in it. So maybe that's the reason why they don't make a kit that goes on that one. Maybe it really doesn't actually have nearly as much oil that comes out of it. I originally bought this because for whatever reason when I was looking at this, I always looked at the hose that came off the non-PCV valve side and saw oil coming out of it and was like, oh, I should get this oil catch can. And then I didn't even really realize where it comes off of. I thought that this one was actually going to produce more oil than the other one. So I am a little bit surprised there. So one thing I will point out to everybody, these oil catch cans themselves are basically identical. The only difference between them that I see is this one says Mishimoto on it, and they have a slightly different lid. This one came with a little bit different lid that has a different style of bracket on it. Otherwise, this oil catch can was $20 on Amazon. It didn't come with the hoses or any kind of real mounting other than, like I said, this little tab. But I was able to get all the hosing. I just went to AutoZone and got some 5/8 hose and routed all the hoses myself, and I got all the hoses for maybe 30 bucks. So this one I have like a total of $50 in. The Mishimoto one, and also any reputable brand that builds a kit for the JK that comes with the catch can, a bracket, and all the hoses, this one was like 200 bucks. So if you want to get creative and find a way to mount it with your own bracket, or just find your own way to mount it, you could save yourself a lot of money by just getting a cheaper catch can and not buying the kit that comes with the hoses and everything. I tend to opt to just buy the kits a lot of times anyways, because it just comes with everything you need and just throw it in and it's done. Versus this one, okay, you got to sit there, get a parts list, find everything you need, chase around stuff, and then figure out how to mount it and route it and everything like that. So it's a little bit more of a pain in the butt. But it definitely does save you some money. So overall, I mean, I would say that these they did do their job. Like I said, you can see that's the oil that otherwise would have been going right into the motor. So I'm also glad to see that I probably can clean this out maybe once every oil change or something. Just because that is a little bit of a pain, but not that big of a deal. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get these put back into place. Alright guys, I got this all buttoned back up. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on this, maybe every 1,000 miles or so now, or I might just let it go until the next oil change. We'll see. But it's another maintenance item you got to keep an eye on, which is kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. Hopefully it's going to be serving a good purpose. So, if you guys want to know a little bit more about kind of why I did this and what I did and what I was trying to achieve here, I'm going to ramble on about that a little bit more here in this video. But if you're not interested in listening to my rambling, which I don't blame you, I just want to say thank you guys for watching. I hope it was informative, and if you guys have any questions, just let me know. If you want to hear me rambling on about why I installed this, stay tuned. Alright, so for anybody wondering, I guess, what my intention was with getting these catch cans is, I've been battling actually what I think was a throttle problem, which maybe isn't a throttle problem, I'm not even sure, where it just doesn't seem to function and react properly in different situations. And one of the issues I thought I had was this hose right here, which is a vacuum line, runs into the air intake, and actually it was leaving enough oil in there that the oil filter was covered in oil, the whole intake tube was covered in oil, and then the throttle body was covered in oil. So I thought, man, that must be, I've got all this oil coming through here, running through the air intake tube, clogging up a sensor, and clogging up the throttle. So I was like, okay, if I go ahead and put a catch can in here, it's going to catch that oil, and it's going to prevent that. Now, I was not smart enough to do any amount of anything other than find a catch can and order it. And it wasn't until I had the catch can and started installing it that I realized the catch can doesn't go in line with this hose. This hose doesn't come from the PCV valve. It comes from a valve, essentially is what I'm going to call it, but there's no valve there. It just comes off of a nipple that comes off of the driver's side valve cover. There's no PCV valve there. It's just open. And when I realized that, I thought, well, shoot, I'm not even fixing my problem with this catch can that I just bought. So that's why I bought the other one, and I put it in line from that port to here. And evidently, that doesn't even collect nearly as much oil anyways. Now, it did collect oil, which means it is preventing oil from running in there, which may be preventing or solving part of my problem with the throttle that I was having, but I'm going to guess maybe it really wasn't, which is actually a little bit disappointing because I did all of this to try and solve a problem. Any way you look at it, getting the catch can and putting it in line with the PCV valve definitely catches oil and is definitely keeping oil out of your engine, but that line is the line that runs in right here, that runs into the air intake behind the throttle. So putting that catch can in there is definitely still serving a purpose. It's definitely keeping a good amount of oil out of your engine. And again, that oil going into your engine, it's just going to be gumming up your valves. It's going to gum up just the air intake plenum itself, and it's going to be gumming up your pistons and definitely could be causing some performance issues. It's just going to be gumming crap up and getting it dirty. And in theory, if that's mixing with the air and the fuel, it's probably just hindering your performance a little bit. So it's definitely worth, installing if you so choose. But it didn't solve the problem that I thought I was having, which is a little bit unfortunate. Maybe inevitably it will. I've got some other ideas right now to help my throttle problem I have, which is a problem where I tend to just stall a lot. And I mean, you could blame that on driver error, but I really don't think it is. I blame it a lot on, what I was blaming it on was the throttle position sensor, which I put a new throttle on. That really didn't help. I was hoping that if maybe the throttle is just getting gummed up, because I did take the throttle off and clean it, and it seemed to help. So I was hoping this would prevent the throttle from gumming up and maybe prevent that problem, but it didn't seem like it did. So I've got some other things I'm going to try to fix that stalling problem, and we'll see what that does. If not, maybe it's driver error, maybe the car just sucks. That's kind of what I'm leaning on. So anyways, yeah, I hope you guys found this video informative. Maybe it might be helping you with any issues down the road. So if you guys are interested at all in the second oil catch can I put in, maybe it's something you want to try, let me know. I did have to get a little bit creative with some of the fuel hoses to get them to work. So if you want to see more of that, let me know. But anyways, otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you for watching.